I like to say I learned how to build furniture from people who've been dead for about 150 years, because I take apart antiques and rebuild them, and in the process you learn how they're done. So that basically, as you go through, you'll see our values are really rooted in the past. Maybe we're a bit of an anachronism. So by 1978, that's what Thomas Moser Cabinetmakers looked like. And what's interesting about this is they're all men, except for the gal in the white pants, who's my wife, and the gal at the extreme right, who is from Philadelphia. So these people came to the business, and in the early 1970s, this was considered an alternate lifestyle. You know, we were hippies, kind of, to reacquaint themselves with a 100-year-old craft, which had gone because of mass production, and that was our whole purpose. In order to do that, we had to sell the furniture, and so the product was more important than the business, in a sense, if you follow me. And so we weren't exactly sure what to build and sell, so we did these highboys, and they were sort of like a demonstration of how skillful we were working in mahogany and doing the carving and all the work. One went to Philadelphia, one went to Detroit, and another one went to Baltimore, and we got a good price for them. But after we sold them, I realized these were based on a design from the 18th century. There was a family in Rhode Island called Townsend and Goddard. And after we built and sold these, I realized that, 30, 40 years from now, somebody in Baltimore is going to say, "Where'd you get that?" "I got that in Maine." "Well, who built it?" "I don't know who built it, but it's a Townsend and Goddard." It came clear to me that if we're going to build a franchise, we're going to build a brand, we damn well better make something which is uniquely ours and not a copy of a 200-year-old piece. Some years ago, the New York Times did a story on sublime design, and they asked me and 5 other designers, what is sublime? And I sent them a picture of the shaker pulley. To me, that's sublime. I mean, they were thinking about, maybe jewelry or fine art, and I'm thinking about something highly utilitarian, which is beautifully made, respectful of the material, respectful of its function. Remember now, the shakers that you were to visit, they existed 100 years before the so-called European Bauhaus, before the modern world where we talked about the form follows function. In other words, what a thing looks like should be based upon how it functions rather than decorating. So the shakers, they avoided decoration. No decoration. It had a big influence on my design. They had a reverence for material, reverence for wood. They understood rhythm, spacing, almost like music, where you have sound and then a rest, and then sound and then a rest. Where you have a rhythm,
Now, was it because you lived in this area that the shakers had an influence on you?
Absolutely. They're just down the road. I lived in that town for 21 years. That's where we started this business, in New Gloucester. So, we owe everything to the cherry trees and the hardwoods of Appalachia, and more particularly the Allegheny Plateau in western Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, an interesting thing happened. After the land was raped, what came up in its place? American black cherry. And so there are sections of Pennsylvania where 40 to 60% of the hardwood growth is what you're sitting at, American black cherry. The most beautiful cherry in the world. In the 19th century, this was called poor man's mahogany. Because remember, mahogany came up from the Caribbean, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Honduras, and it was being pretty well depleted, and it was very expensive. So cherry is what was used. And so I love it. We all do. It's our favorite wood. We like walnut too, black walnut, and we like some of the white woods. These are called northern hardwoods. Our philosophy in building and designing furniture is if it can be made of wood, it should be made of wood. Otherwise, it can be brass or stainless steel. It may not be plastic, and it may not be particle board or veneer. We try to make everything out of solid wood. There are exceptions, but that principle is called what you're seeing there. The architecture of this, or the engineering of it, is the culmination of 3,000 years of human development. This is the same way a case piece would have been made in Egypt 3,000 or 2,000 BC. Dovetails, lap joints, mortise and tenon, miters, they had it in Africa 2,500 years ago. So what you're seeing here, and that's part of our philosophy, is to build as though the clock never stopped in about 1860 when everything went to hell in a handbasket. You know what I mean by that? Industrial revolution, make it cheap, make it by machine, untouched by human hands, cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter. So one of the little bit of an ornament, if you want to call it an ornament, are the joints. We do celebrate the joints as ornaments. That's that stack laminate, that's how you get this lovely curve. Now,
That chair's going to be in the same size library.
that is David's design. It's our definition of a wing chair. Lovely chair. David is really a sculptor who happens to make things he can sit in. Lately, or some years ago, we started doing some arts and crafts things, and it has sort of an Asian influence, like these pieces here. We call this a bungalow series, or turn of the century, new century. And most of these designs these are my designs. Most of these are rooted on a historical antecedent or a historical prototype of some kind or another. This is like a European sleigh bed or a tractor seat. And now this one owes a lot to Mies van der Rohe. He did a seat very much like this, except he did it out of stainless steel, and he did it 90 years ago. Just because something is old doesn't make it not contemporary. It is very contemporary today. That was what happens. See what happens to 40 years? Look at that. 40 years. 40 years. I weighed 170 pounds now. I weigh 100. I have gained weight. I weigh 173 now. Or a little more, maybe.